So let's talk about leadership, Jen.
Okay.
So in our company, you're the CEO and I'm the COO. What do you think really makes that dynamic work?
Honesty, communication. I think
agree with
those
that.
are the two things. And in honesty and communication, it's awesome to celebrate. And I think a lot of people talk about, oh, when you have a team, celebrate wins and all that type of stuff. But when you have a dynamic duo running a company, one's the visionary, one's the integrator, and being able to translate the vision into actions is your gift. And my ability to see what's coming and make sure that we're ahead of the game and that we're leading in the market, it's easy when you're in the work to just keep rolling and not taking that pit stop, right?
Yeah.
To make sure we're aligned and talking. And then also that vicious cycle of the old game telephone where then we have a conversation and the team has to execute. And I think what makes our dynamic really good is that we know, we've learned how to navigate just what's working, but actually what's not working.
Agreed.
Being able to navigate conflict and
Yes,
being able
the
to
hard
be like
conversations.
hard conversations.
The real conversations.
The
I think
real.
sometimes people call it, oh, it's a hard conversation, but it's just a real conversation, an honest conversation about here's where we are, here's where we want to be, we might be like way in the weeds trying to get something done right now, and also remember what the bigger vision is,
100%.
right? Like, and being able to toggle all of that at the same time.
Yeah.
I think people call it hard, but it's so necessary. I mean,
Well, it's
you know.
like, it's grown conversation.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I think that what makes small businesses exciting is when you can have that visionary, somebody who's come up with the original idea, and when you can find one person who is enrolled in the vision and the mission, because I see myself as the vision and you're the mission taker. Like, it's kind of like you make sure the mission is on point. You're the general, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I'm kind of like the president of the country that's doing all kinds of stuff, and people are both loving and hating on their choices and
Executive
decisions,
orders.
right? And I'm signing those executive orders, and you're kind of going, "This is our mission. Let's get it done." And so, I think treating it like a grown business, but also understand that we're real human beings, and reminding each other to rest.
Yes.
reminding
Yes.
each other to
Breathe.
That also some things are just temporary and we have to move
Yeah.
through it, and some things are hard stop. We can't do things anymore.
And I think too, it's great because when you have somebody to celebrate the wins with,
Yeah.
and in those times it's that much sweeter because it's not just like, oh, that's a great thing that you did, but like we were in this together.
Yes.
On the other side, it's like, yes, it was
Yeah.
worth it, and you can share that mutual feeling of satisfaction. One thing that I think is really great about small business structure too is the lack of politics. There doesn't have to be this weird thing between you and then me and then the team, that there's not all that red tape and the legalese, HR, all the constraints of like, you can't do that. And of course, not in an inappropriate way, but just in a way that, again, real conversations that have to happen in order to move anything forward.
Well,
you know?
I mean, isn't that why we left the
Yes.
corporate world anyway?
Yes.
Because there's structures that we brought into this business, which I think is really important. I mean, this is strategy,
100%.
this is structure, right? So structure creates freedom in my mind. And I feel like though the wrong structure or over structure is what gets people demotivated, deflated, decreative. And it's our job to just find that cadence that will work for our goals,
Yes.
but also still allow us to build upon wins and not repeat bad shit that we've done.
100%.
So I think that that's the main thing and it's this ongoing conversation. We meet weekly, minimum,
Yep.
to have what we call our visionary integrator meeting. So when we say about our dynamic, I think one of the structures we've implemented, it's called our VIP meeting, almost like visionary integrator,
Processing.
powwow. Processing powwow, yeah, exactly. Where
Planning to take over the world. Just joking.
right? Productivity, like how can
All
we
the
better?
things,
And
yes.
so I think that because we commit to that, and that we talk about the parts of the business that matter, and also we reconnect and make sure we're still like personally invested.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the work, but we're human beings. We're not running some artificial intelligence robot company. You know what I mean? If I was that smart, I definitely would get into that business because there's a lot more money there. But since we're not, you know, we got to focus on there are humans here, and we're helping humans get them into the world and getting their expertise seen, heard, and paid. And so it's really important that we're reflecting that integrity in our own business and having those conversations, because they're hard. Hiring team and building this type of trust. It happens while you're together.
And market conditions,
Totally.
things you cannot anticipate happening, and how you still need to be of service to the clients and providing value, like, all of those things at the same time. I really feel like we walk away being on the same page, or at least coming to an understanding of here's what we need to do next to get back into cadence. And I think that cadence is so important.
Yeah.
And people think, like, we have meetings too that are not the VI meeting, that are for the more tasky day-to-day types of things that have to happen for the company to run. But I think sometimes people have those meetings and they think, oh yeah, I meet with my person all the time, but they don't, it's all the to-do list stuff. It's not actually about the bigger vision, and that really, I think, needs its separate space. You need to honor and kind of give it a little bit of space to breathe when you're thinking about bigger visions.
Agreed.
I love that. I definitely think that's one of the dynamics that makes our relationship work.
Well, I think one thing too is that the more you communicate and the more you work through quote unquote hard things, we start to really anticipate what each other need.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen immediately. And I noticed that in small business, sometimes you hire your friend or your auntie or your mom, which can cause problems because I've done that.
Right? Love you, Mom.
And Sarah and I met in a small business forum kind of thing.
Right.
And we didn't know each other when we met. So we didn't have this background. So even with that, you need a specific. It takes time. That's my point. And you have to have some patience, and you can't give up so quickly when things are not working. And I'm not trying to say things don't work, because we're pretty mom. But no, but seriously, like
all the factors you can't account for. There's always going to be something. The best laid plans, right? That they say, there's always going to be something. And I think sometimes what I appreciate the most about our dynamic is there's a mutual level of commitment.
Yeah.
We're committed the same to making this work with the same type of intensity and the same passion. It's not one person enrolling the other, or the other person saying, yes, I'm committed, but secretly they're not. There's space to be very honest so that we can always have that same level of commitment.
And it's a mutual respect for each other's gifts, talents, and skills in our lane. So I just want to say that, like, the second in command, whatever, right? Their job is not to kowtow and do what you please as the visionary.
Yes.
Our dynamic works too, because you're not afraid to bring problems to me, and I had to be open to hear them, because none of us like to hear problems. None of us want to hear challenges, but that you felt that you could. And I don't know, was that easy for you at the beginning?
Not in the beginning, no. Because especially coming out of corporate, right? You are very careful with what you escalate and how and when, and you are careful to dot your I's and cross your T's. And what I really love is how often you reiterated to me in the beginning, like, I need you to trust me. And I was like, I do trust you. And you're like, if you trust me, you'll show me these things. And I was like, oh, that was a whole different level of trust that I hadn't been introduced to before.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why I'm so passionate about small business is because the freedom to do these things and to grow myself as a leader in ways that I could have never done with, again, I love corporate structure and a lot of the things that we've been able to build for productivity. But for leadership, development, vision, so much more autonomy in what we do.
Yep.
I have a question from one of the watchers who says, obviously this is different for everyone, but there must be a through line that ties everything together, right? So for every company, the duo is different, but is there a through line that you would say is pretty same across all, CEO, COO, visionary, integrator type relationships?
I think it is that we have aligned values. That's what I would say is the through line. And I think that's what we teach leaders who come and work with us too, is that, given that I spent so many years in the corporate world and we build brand values for companies, every good company on their website says, these are our values. This is what we stand for. And that's great. But are you actually being the values?
Yes.
Right? Are you actually being it? And I think that that's the through line for any successful leader and any successful company. And success, again, is a measure of not just your financial goals and achieving them, but it's also a measure of, can you retain people? Can you keep people enrolled in the vision? Because again, not every best laid plans are going to go as we think. You're going to have wins, you're going to have losses, you're going to have things happen in our lives, sidewinders. And so your values, after studying this for years, for me, I realized that was the nucleus. Like, oh, how we show up is actually based on our values, whether we like it or not. And a lot of times people pick values that are externally focused instead of what comes from the leader. And back to us and our company, and if you're listening and watching, I want you to think about this for you is, do the people on your team really understand what the values of the company are? Like, sure, on the surface, we can say, hey, our values are autonomy, justice, generosity, leadership, and legacy. But if they're just words, then again, they mean nothing. And it means that the people on the team aren't on board with the mission. So we take our time explaining, when even in our job descriptions, it's on the top of our job descriptions, because I like context over content. I'm the context, she's the content.
I'm the content.
Right? And I need people to understand why.
Yes.
So that they can decide and they can choose in with true choice, not just because they want a job or just because, hey, whatever, they like me or they like the mission. I want them to be the mission. And so to me, a company being what we call values driven is a company that is the company of the future. And so
and it starts from the top of the leader being clear about what they want and what the values are and explaining it to the team so that they really understand it. And it continues on even in the way of the execution. So I'm always asking the team when we do recap meetings or after a campaign or performance reviews or we're onboarding, I always ask them, how does this, you have your own values that are separate from the company. How can you take your highest value? How is that linking back to the company, right? Like you teach people to link back, and how is that showing up for you? How is autonomy, one of our values as a company, really serving you right now and the lifestyle you want, and helping people to keep it at the forefront of their minds so that even when we're in the content and doing all the checklist, tasky things that I'm obsessed with as an integrator.
She loves that stuff.
I'm obsessed. There's no better high than a completed check-off list, like really. But even when we get that tactical and that micro, there's still this idea of, oh, right, it ties back to bigger purpose. And I think at the end of the day, every excellent worker, contractor, leader really wants to feel like they're living their purpose through their work, you know? And so the being values driven definitely helps with that. Okay, so I have one more question today from listeners.
Okay.
All right. So a key point is leadership is required to build everything that we do in a company. How do we become better leaders of ourselves, Jen? We hear you say that question that often is, how do you lead? You have to first lead yourself. So how do you become a better leader of yourself?
Such a great question. So leadership of self and leadership of others isn't a sequential or if-then game. So I first want to say that, meaning you actually learn how to lead yourself when you take the step to lead others, especially as a small business owner. I feel like you don't read books and learn how to be a leader, okay? Now, everybody, if you know me, you would know that I'm a bibliophobe. My happy place is actually not even being here talking to you. It would be in a corner with a book, nobody bothering me for probably a year. That would be awesome. Like, that's my ultimate bucket list lifestyle. Books teach you concepts, and they're good in that way. But they don't teach you how to deal with conflict, to deal with even inspiring and motivating others to get on the mission with you. But how you do that is you have to be that. And so that's what I mean by leadership of self. Motivation and inspiration are the inner game. But a lot of people seek it outside through a book, through a guru, through a podcast. And again, it's not that these tools aren't useful. But if you want to be a leader of yourself, you have to ask yourself, if I wake up tomorrow and I don't listen to this podcast or read this book or listen to this inspirational quote or whatever, will I feel motivated to get out of bed and show up,
Yes.
get seen, get heard, all the scary stuff.
Get paid.
Yes. Right? To ask for the money, like, and that, when you become confident at that, that's leadership. And when I say confident, I don't mean big, bold, extroverted confidence, although that's a type of confidence and that's awesome. If you're already naturally like that,
Yes, good for you. You're winning.
okay. I'm not like that naturally. And I think a lot of people are surprised. They're like, what? You're so comfortable talking to people. And I said, because I'm living in my values. Because when you live in your true values, you actually don't, people perceive you as confident. But really what it is you are inspired and lit up from the inside to speak about what your mission is. It's just true for you. It's the truth. Yeah. And the only way you get better at telling the truth about you is that you do it. And so back to leadership of self, it's a practice. It's not all of a sudden I'm going to have this enlightenment like Buddha. By the way, that happens because you're dead. Like, I don't know if you guys understand this. So anyway, while you're alive,
different episode,
right?
Back for that one.
While you're alive, it's really important to understand that people are looking to you to lead.
Yeah.
And so it's your responsibility to figure out, what are my values? How are my actions lining up with my values? Because whether we like it or not, this is kind of hard to hear, but it's hard for me to say too, is the only thing that matters in life is results.
Yes.
And when I say results, I'm not talking about external results. I'm talking about the results you want for your life. Like if you want better wealth, if you want better health, if you want better relationships, if you want a better relationship to yourself, it takes you getting honest about what that is. And so when you show up like that, the people around you, your clients, your team, your family even, they start to go, wow, she's serious about this. Because a lot of times we talk about it, but we're not being about it.
Yeah.
And being about it is different than talking about it. So that's kind of how I define leadership of self.
I love it. Such a great conversation.
Oh my gosh. We could talk all day about this.
All day. We should talk all day. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. We are going to be back very soon with even more. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. In fact, that comment point, leave us a comment below about what you want to hear us talk about next, and share this with a friend who needs it. We'll see you all very soon. Same place, right here, the two of us together. Bye, everybody.